Good, you rocking with your boy Czarr, all rights reserved. Now today, there's a lot we could talk about. First off, let's start it off. Just some of the people I be talking about that be sending their mother or some old type of person to sit there and me mug, and I'm not even gonna show her picture. You guys are gonna get sick. She's not attractive at all. But we have another audience. I'm usually by myself when I'm doing this, but we have a secondary guest, so let's get into it. And she's not in this car. XxxTentacion. They're doing further investigations, and a lot of the evidence that's actually coming out is pretty disturbing. Down to the fact that they were actually following him. Then we get to the fact of the matter of the interviews I seen with him, and that's my focus. No, this is not foil. It is a special type of electrical tape that amplifies Bluetooth. So if I walk away from my phone, I could still kind of hear it at clarity. But that's just me using my brain to do some sensible things. But I had a lot of people who thought it was aluminum foil. See it? They're actually really idiots. That's kind of why I wear it, because it's idiot proof. It keeps idiots away from me. It's better that way. A thing I want to talk about dealing with what Tentacion is doing. And we will talk about the situation with Junior, the 15-year-old mistaken. I got some other questions that I'm waiting to get answered before I go ahead and do a presentation on that. It's not going to be anything disrespectful, but I do want to note that yes, they shut the shop down. I don't really have an opinion on that. The owners operate how they do, but the pressure was too much. The store closed. I can't really say what I would have done, but let's get into this. Now, there's a second suspect. They now released a picture that they've arrested for not minor things, trafficking, cocaine and stuff. And let me let you guys in on something. If you get hit with a traffic violation, then they stop you and find something, it's justifiable. That's why the moment a traffic violation is in effect, you got to know your laws. You got to know your laws. Number one, you got to know what's going on. You got to know how to handle yourselves. It seems like they haven't caught up to these individuals enough in order to expose them thoroughly. But that's another situation altogether. And if you were wondering what was going on yesterday, I made the video and stuff. Yes, the cop came back with his wife. I don't know. He wanted me to see his wife. I mean, she was flat all over. I don't know why. I mean, she wasn't bad. She wasn't beautiful. I just watched them walk around and they were kind of like smiling at me. I'm a very sensitive person to new people in my area, in my domain. So when I see certain people, you resonate with me, and I have photographic memory. So if I seen you once, I seen you again, I'll know I seen you before. It's a type of, let's say, effect that has preserved life. But dealing with Tentacion's situation, these guys definitely, I just don't get how they were free. The only way I could see them being free is they had to be telling on someone. And that takes us into our topic right now. If you get caught doing some type of violent crime and you get bagged up, more than likely your guy's going to tell on you. You know what I mean? It's not too many people that are built to take the time all alone, because the threats that are given to them, they don't know the laws. They're more than likely going to snitch on you. And brings me to this. How did they know that this was one of the guys? My opinion is it's alleged Diedrich could have gave up the other guys, being what he's about to get hit with. Now, he didn't even do the murder. He was a driver. So when I put murder on you and you were driving, that really does raise your concerns. You're like, man, I didn't even shoot no one. But they're not realizing you were involved in the alleged murder. You know what I mean? Whether you murdered the person or not, you were pulling moves and jukes to try and get them in a situation to get hemmed up to be murdered. That's you doing it. You know what I'm saying? It's the law. It's what happens. That's why you don't do things like that. But maybe they'll figure it out. As far as the other guy, they say he's on the run. Say they had warrants for other offenses. When I look into this, I can't see how they're free. These guys, on the charges they have, okay, just looking at PA law, there's no way you'd be free. By the time you'd been free, you'd be in your mid-30s. If you were 20-something, like 21, you'd be like 32, 35 before you got free. So I'm not really getting how these guys maintained their freedom to commit the crimes they committed. And that brings it back to an understanding, like what role did these guys actually play in Tentacion's setup and his destruction? You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of interviews of Tentacion. Go check it out there. You know what I mean? He wasn't a violent person, but he wasn't a conservative person with his views. I would say he was more offensive than he was suicidal. Like, he was more ready to go to war with someone who he felt would offend him. You know what I mean? I was watching an interview today where he said if the guy was bigger, he'd stab him. But if he was around his size, he'd fight him. But he said he's not really a shooting person. Was that a mistake he made? Should he have said that, listen, I defend myself. I do what needs to be done. I'm not a violent person, but he said he's not a shooter specifically. And there she goes. I actually don't even know if that was a woman. I'm being real. He said he's not a shooter, but he would stab someone, or he would, maybe it is. But he'd gladly stab someone that's larger than him. Was it a mistake for him to give up the way he protects himself? Because now, saying you're not a person that shoots, I know you're more likely not to have a gun on you. And this was a large interview. This interview got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views. Not a million, because it wasn't a very large radio station. I think it was, I'm not going to put out a number of a radio station. I watched it earlier, actually like 3 interviews, and I was kind of shocked he gave up how he defends himself. If you're a superstar, don't announce stuff like that. Because as a guy that would prey on people, if I seen that, I'm like, okay, this superstar doesn't even, he said he doesn't shoot. He's not a shooter. But he's talking about violence, and he probably has a bunch of money on him because he looks like he's wearing chains and a lot of expensive stuff. I think, honestly, these mainstream views played a huge part in the preparation for whoever was looking to get at him. You know what I'm saying? He gave up his strategy. He gave it up. He was like, look, I do this, I don't do that. That's not what you want. You don't want to do interviews that way. That's not the way you want to go about it. If someone's asking you questions about how you defend yourself, you let them know, you know what I mean? I'm very well off. I'm blessed. You know, you kind of pass it off. And a lot of MCs do this very well, especially, I'm going to say the Migos are good at doing that. Like when they ask them very strategic questions, delving into their life and how they kind of handle themselves, they're very good at deflecting. You got to learn to deflect very well. And if you learn anything from Tentacion's interviews, I think this is very important, to learn to watch, study them, and learn to deflect. There's questions that shouldn't be answered publicly. There's certain things you need to talk about: music, family, life, and your viewpoints. But you don't talk about how you defend yourself, what you do in situations, who you got around you. These things are just not copacetic for you to move around in any city, even if you moved, even if you're home. And I think this is a lot of reasons some artists are put out of whack. Now, I just want to mention this swiftly to finish up. I seen, and I got to get the article and the details, and I'd like to get the interview itself. I read and saw that a cop was celebrating the death of Jimmy Wapo. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. And that simple thing should show you the racism in Pennsylvania, whatever you want to call it. That should show you. These cops love seeing black men die. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's about. But for that very factor that they celebrate at that, the world is going to bring back bad things to you. And they don't realize it. Like, you're going to find your wife in bed with a black guy. You're going to find your wife is cheating on you with a black guy. Just because you think that way about a certain particular race and you verbalize how happy you are. Now, they tried not to drop his name, but that's why I got to do research. And when I find it, I'll gladly show the interview, drop his name. I don't have a problem with that, because when you do, no one's ever sat here. I didn't even celebrate the death of people I knew were racist that didn't like us. I would never do that, because why? What do you gain from it? What do you gain at the loss of life? No one should celebrate the loss of life. It's nothing to clap about. It's nothing to laugh at. It's not a joke. You know what I'm saying? You joke about that and it comes back on you. And these are the things we need to remember, that there's authority willing to even make a statement of the sort and enjoy it. Now, that he could have beat them in court multiple times and now they're celebrating because something happened to him. That's terrible. That's terrible. And that officer doesn't deserve a badge. I'm going to be real. That's why I'm going to really research, because we get at corrupt authority. That is a corrupt officer. I don't care what you say. You're celebrating the death of anyone, regardless of how bad you thought they were or how good. You're a corrupt officer. And if you can't realize that, you don't need a badge on your chest. Now, that's no disrespect to the officers that take their job seriously. But seriously, if a guy beside you thinks that way, you don't address it. You just ride with him. I don't address fake people. I don't have fake people riding with me, rolling around me. What's that about? What's that all about? I need some answers. All rights reserved.